Thinking of ways to grow your business through electronic messages such as emails or text or other forms of electronic communication with prospective clientele? Well, if you're anywhere in Canada, and in particular, this video is coming from a law firm based in Ontario, Canada, then there is regulation you need to know about. In particular, I'm talking about CASL, Canada's anti-spam legislation. If you'd like to learn more about how CASL can impact the sorts of messages you're sending out and the potential consequences if you're not following CASL protocol, then keep on watching. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Pamela Metani and I'm the principal lawyer and founder here at Graphene Business Law. As I mentioned, a law firm in Ontario, Canada, offering services virtually throughout the province and exclusively to business owners and entrepreneurs. If you're new to our YouTube channel, please click on the subscribe button down below. We regularly post content that is most relevant to business owners and entrepreneurs, and give this video a big thumbs up. So, like I mentioned, in today's video, we're going to be talking about CASL, Canada's anti-spam legislation. I'm a business lawyer and the founder here at Graphene Business Law, and CASL is a piece of legislation that does impact quite a few of our clients. So I thought I'd put out this educational video out there and see if there's some application to you watching this video, because honestly, it's a kind of communication that it captures is so ubiquitous nowadays. Emails, messages, I mean, who doesn't send a text message? But the trouble you can get into if you don't follow CASL protocol, it's literally millions of dollars in damage that can ensue if you don't follow the right steps. So you're going to see me looking down here. Of course, what I'm looking at is my notes. Okay, like I mentioned, CASL stands for Canada's anti-spam legislation. Let's take things one at a time, okay? CASL came about in 2014 in Canada, and it was meant, of course, to protect consumers from all this junky, all this spammy, all this cyber threat type messages, okay? And threats included, and I'm just reading down here, identity theft threat, phishing, and the spread of malicious software such as viruses, worms, and other malware, okay? And I do read here that the legislation has made a positive difference. When CASL took effect in 2014, Canada was home to 7 of the world's top 100 spamming organizations, and by 2019, there's no longer any Canadian organizations on that list. So that's a bit of history on CASL. Well, one of the words in CASL, one of the defining words is spam, and that word keeps coming up. If you're watching this video and you're a business owner that is so proud to put together a good service or a good product out there, but you're not the most techie person, you don't really understand all this spam mumbo jumbo, well, the government actually provides you a definition. What is spam? And I'm going to be looking down to read it out loud to you. So, spam, says the Government of Canada, has become a significant social and economic burden in Canada. The simplest definition of spam is unsolicited email, though it can include unsolicited text messages and software. So remember at the beginning of the video, we talked about any sort of digital mean of communicating with your potential target market. The legal definition of spam also encompasses unauthorized alteration of transmission data, the installation of computer programs without consent, false or misleading electronic representations, including websites, the harvesting of addresses, okay, so collecting and using email addresses, for example, without permission, and 5, the collection of personal information by accessing a computer system or electronic device illegally, okay? CASL, of course, focuses on commercial electronic messages. And the government ends its sentence by saying, which are those that encourage participation in a commercial activity, whether or not there is an expectation of profit, okay? Now, with spam being such a big concern, I mean, when you think about the sheer volume of messages that are exchanged electronically today and how many people are targeted by those messages and made victims of those messages, and then, you know, of course, at a private level, lawyers and private organizations have to get involved, but on a macro level, it's the government that ends up swallowing a lot of these losses. You can see how from a public policy perspective, the government, including the federal government, right, of Canada in this case, although there's very similar legislation in the US, for example, But the government has incentive to sort of put that, guiding hand on the market when it comes to spam messages that you could be sending your customers, as well-intentioned as you might be. You could be sending potential customers, I should say. And we'll talk about the reason I keep saying potential customers in a minute. Okay, I'm going to read you here some more fast facts about CASL. CASL prohibits companies from sending, so this is geared toward somebody that's received a message, okay? And you'll hear it says you. Sending you commercial electronic messages without your consent, including email, social media, and text messages. Altering the transmission data in an electronic message so the message is sent to a different destination without your consent. Installing software on your electronic devices without your consent. Using false or misleading representations to promote products or services online. And there's a whole host of other legislation that covers, misleading advertisements. Collecting personal information by accessing a computer system or electronic device illegally, and harvesting addresses, as we already mentioned, for example, email addresses, okay? CASL is enforced through a myriad of government agencies in Canada. So it's not, up to like this mystery conglomerate of individuals coming together to see if somebody's violated or not. This is a serious government endeavor, okay? So serious, in fact, that fines for violating CASL, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, can range from literally $1 to $10 million, $1 million for individuals and $10 million for businesses. And if you're a business owner watching this video from an educational perspective, not legal advice, I hope you've incorporated. So that would put you under the umbrella of a corporation, which is a business, which has a max fine of $10 million for the most serious violations. But if we're talking the millions for the most serious, even the not so serious are going to come with a hefty fine. It's just the name of the game, because the government, like I said, is trying to clean up these messes before they even start. So that means that we're going to be making a pretty stern example of individuals and companies that are violating, these anti-spam measures. Now, there are two ways for an individual or organization messaging you to obtain consent, okay? And that's express consent and implied consent. So if you're a business owner and you're sending messages out, express consent is what you should go for, just to avoid the sticky trouble, right? But for what it's worth, what does implied consent mean? Implied consent, remember how I keep differentiating between potential customer and current customer? Implied consent is something that you can make the argument that you're spamming your current clientele and you have their implied consent, right? However, express consent is sort of the gold standard. So if you want to message somebody about something, you should obtain their express consent through literally asking them, like, are you okay hearing from this company as regards this and that? Are you okay hearing about our promos? Are you okay hearing about, our new features, things like that? That's the best way to protect yourself. And so what does this mean, right? Let's put together all the aspects of this video. We've talked about the history of CASL. We've talked about the meaning of spam, in case some of you are, not up to date with every single legal definition out there. That's okay. That's my job. So it's okay. But if you're not, we define spam. We talked about, potential fines, and we talked about what CASL protects your customers from. And we talked about the implied and express consent. And now the big picture is, well, wait a second, can I still message people anymore? Can I send a text or an email? Yes, you can. You can legally do that. But there are 3 requirements for sending a commercial electronic message to an electronic address, okay? Electronic address, again, somebody's text, somebody's email. Those are good examples. To be able to send that message, you need 3 things. The first is consent. And we talked about how it can be implied or expressed, but consent, okay? And err on the side of express. That's going to be your best bet, because why wouldn't it be if you have an express yes from somebody that yes, you can contact me as regards whatever initiative you have in mind. Consent. 2, identification, okay? So identifying information. Who are you that's sending this message, okay? And what's the company? Who are you if it's an individual? And 3, an unsubscribe mechanism, right? Because we don't want to, we can see how the law wouldn't like it if we said, well, you know, I got their consent, I told them who I was, and now I will message them until the end of time. So on account of, you know, freedoms of speech and freedom of, you know, action and self-autonomy, the individuals, the human beings you're sending these messages to, as lovely as you might be and as lovely as the products and services as you might be offering maybe, need to have an unsubscribe mechanism. Now, from a business perspective, are there things you can do to mitigate, you know, the chance that somebody will unsubscribe? Yeah, there's a few business strategies you could take. For example, you know, don't be spamming people every single day. Don't, or I shouldn't use the word spam so loosely because I don't want to confuse things, but don't be sending messages out every day. You know, we all know what it's like to be on the receiving end of just more junk in our inboxes. If you have something important to say, what are the chances you're gonna have something super important, a super amazing new initiative every single day, okay? So consider lessening the quantity of the messages you're sending out if you want them to stick more and if you want your customers to be less likely to unsubscribe, for example. Consider offering some value in the messages. So I'm sure you've seen, you know, as a customer, as a consumer yourself, you're getting messages with, you know, a reasonable coupon in there, a reasonable sort of discount or promo code. That's going to make you more likely to think of that company on favorable terms, as opposed to just, hey, here's all about us. Hey, here's all about us. Hey, here's our stuff. But it's like, finish that circle for the customer. Why should they care, right? So thinking like a customer in that perspective should make it less likely that the customers you are messaging are less likely to unsubscribe, okay? I hope this video has been educational. CASL, like I mentioned, from 2014, I mean, on one hand, it's been around for, you could say, close to a decade. On the other hand, given that, you know, it's, I mean, it's so many more decades before that and centuries before that, that human beings have been partaking in business and trade and sale and buying and all of that. It's a fairly, you know, recent piece of legislation. So I hope this video adds some value to you as a business owner. Yes, you know, you are allowed to communicate electronically with customers and prospective customers, but make sure it's CASL adherent, because, you know, you're trying to start something good in communicating electronically with your customers. You certainly don't want, at the end of the day, that, you know, good that you were trying to start to backfire and you get in legal trouble over it, okay? Because anybody can report that interaction, by the way. So somebody, if you're sending out these messages en masse, well, you're exposing yourself en masse as well, okay? If you're a business owner, of course, that needs help with the privacy and tech pieces of your business, so CASL is one thing, you know, anti-spam legislation, of course, is one thing we can help you with, making sure you're CASL adherent, going over your current, you know, agreements and communications and all that. But any privacy piece, really, we can help with data share agreements, non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements, privacy pieces for your website itself, so, you know, terms and conditions and privacy policies, things that you might have seen on other well-established websites. Well, you should be following, you know, those golden standards yourself as well, okay? So if you're interested, if you think your business could benefit from, you know, privacy and technology help, which I can tell you for a fact, almost all of my clients can benefit in that regard, do give us, you know, send us an email, info@graphenebusinesslaw.ca, and of course our website is graphenebusinesslaw.ca. Thank you for watching.